Welcome to the AI Equalizer podcast, where we try and balance out the AI noise with conversations about how people are really using it. And today I'm joined by Corinne Thomas, who is the founder of Ethical Sales, which helps businesses grow ethically and sustainably. Hi, Corinne.
Hi.
So thanks for joining me. Before we get into AI, maybe tell us a little bit about Ethical Sales and why you founded it and what it does.
Sure. Yeah, so like many business owners, my journey started out of frustration, really. I had done some work with sales agencies and found them to be less than supportive to their clients. They didn't have particularly ethical processes. And I wanted to set up a company that really was rooted in growth with integrity. So the service that we offer is all about growth and building up as an organization, but doing that with ethics in mind, hence the name Ethical Sales. So we established as a business development agency, primarily working with mission-led, purpose-driven businesses, anything from a sustainable last mile delivery service to a new carbon footprint accounting service for the food service industry, and anything in between. So we've done that for the last 5 years, and then obviously today we're going to be talking a bit more about how we've brought AI into our services as well. So now we very much focus on growth powered by people, process, and tech, which is, AI being a key part of that technology, because you can't have one without the other, we've discovered. And so we've been on that journey for the last couple of years with our clients, and it's been really interesting, and it's great to be here to talk about it a bit more.
Great. So was there like a pivotal moment when you realized AI was going to become a big thing for your clients, or did it just happen gradually?
Yeah, I think there was a pivotal moment when I started using AI more to support client work and then advising clients on how they could use it. And they were so receptive to it, and they were saying that they just didn't really know where to start with it. But because I was seeing such an immediate impact in the way I was using it in my business, that was a bit of a light bulb moment for me that this is probably going to change my industry. The business development industry certainly changed enormously over the last 18 months. Agencies and service providers, it's changing hugely about how they work. So it's going to have an impact on all our clients as well. So there was that moment where I thought, actually, I think this is perhaps what everybody is saying it is going to be. It is like we've opened Pandora's box. There's no going back, and everything is about to change. And then from that moment on, I just looked at everything through the lens of, what can AI do for my business? What can it do for my clients? What do I need to do to support them on the journey, basically?
Okay. So how did that start? How did you start to build that into your services that you offered?
Well, I'm not one for doing things by halves, and I didn't want to be one of those. There's a lot of them about one of those businesses that just suddenly stick AI powered on their service, you know, uh, uh, and they just claim that they are now powered by AI and they're doing exactly the same things underneath, perhaps just with ChatGPT on the side. So I didn't want to do that. And so I was started quite slowly and deliberately. And I actually come from a learning and development background. Before I launched Ethical Sales, I was a sales director for a global leadership organization called Common Purpose. And I learned a lot about facilitation. And I'd also launched a sales training academy for the last 2 years, called Ethical Sales Academy. And so I'd learned about how to deliver online learning, and I'd learned about the impact of AI on that. So I brought those two together and decided to retrain as essentially an AI trainer. So I worked with an organization, a trusted learning provider called AI for Non-Techies, and I actually went on a 6-month journey to train myself to learn how to teach AI to non-technical people. And that's where I started. And that's what took me through to the next phase of services that we offer, which is AI training and implementation to SMEs and social impact organizations. So helping them on that AI adoption journey, doing it in a way that's building capability in their teams, thinking about how to do it ethically. So creating their policies, and then also how do they implement it. So there's a lot of hands-on and troubleshooting that needs to happen if you're going to help an organization to adopt it effectively. You can't just do a one and done and deliver training and then walk away. It doesn't really work like that.
Yeah, and you mentioned there, there's a whole that they're all SMEs or value-led organisations, but there's a
Yeah.
whole range of companies that you work with across different fields. So, who usually drives that decision to start using AI within the business?
It definitely tends to come from leadership. I'm hearing most that, the board has come together and the chairman of the board or the CEO has got to be in their bonnet about AI. Why are you not using it? They want everyone to be 5 steps ahead, but the reality is that it's more complicated than that. But it definitely comes from leadership, and the challenging thing around that is that you have 2 different types of leadership. You have the ones that are really gung-ho and really want to implement it fast and change everything and break everything, and then you've got the leaders that are very risk averse and cautious and actually quite fearful of it, and so they want to embrace it but they don't know how. They want to do it in a way that's culturally responsible, and I would say that I sit more in the latter camp. So I want to support, or I do support, organizations that are thinking about how to do it responsibly and with their people in mind, rather than just kind of going all guns blazing, which, as we've all seen in the headlines, there's been some real AI failures. And I wrote a blog recently about, what SMEs might want to look for in terms of AI trends this year. And one of them was learn from the corporate failures that are going to come out this year, because it's the big companies that have embraced it very quickly that are the ones that are falling the hardest.
So, you mentioned that there's kind of 2 approaches that leaders might take. Yeah, they might be kind of more gung ho and trying to go quickly, or cautious and taking things slowly, taking their team with them. Do you see one of those more than the other, or is it a fair split?
From my client base, I'm definitely seeing the latter, because I work with SMEs up here in Murray. They're often family-owned businesses. They're rooted in traditional sectors, so manufacturing, food and drink, renewable energy, that sort of thing. And then I also work with national charities or social impact organizations, employee-owned social enterprises. So all of those organizations are approaching it quite cautiously. They are excited about it, but they want to do it in the right way, in a way that's culturally sensitive to their people. And that means that it doesn't break things. They don't want that to happen to their organization. So I'm definitely seeing the latter. But I think if you look at the wider kind of AI hype and the noise that you see out there, you might see more of the former. And I think that's problematic, because everybody thinks that everyone's further ahead than they actually are.
Yeah, there is a lot of hype, isn't there? And quite
Yes.
often when you get underneath the hood of the hype, it's actually, oh, this is the guide, or this is the hack for doing this thing this way. And when you get underneath it, it's actually not much different from what we're already doing. And
Yeah.
I think there is that real fear, isn't there, as you say, of being behind, because it feels like everybody else is so much further ahead.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you a question, but it might not be that relevant given the way the leaders that you work with are more cautious. But I was really interested in, you've got the decision from leadership to follow AI, to adopt AI. I wondered what sort of reactions you get from the team and from other
Yeah.
people in the business.
Yeah, and I was actually speaking to exactly that with a client earlier on. They were concerned about rolling out AI in their organization, and how many of the team will be skeptical and not want to be involved in the training and not want to engage. And so there tend to be sort of 3 main camps, really. You have the very excited and positive people who have maybe tried it a bit, seen the potential, but all really want to learn, and they're willing to embrace it fully in their day to day. They'd be like your AI champions of the future. And then you have the skeptics. So those are the people that have maybe tried it once, dabbled, not got anything from it, can't see how it's relevant to their role, think it's too much trouble to learn, um, just don't really want to engage. And then you also have those people that are very fearful of it. And often the skeptics were probably fearful underneath as well. But those who are really afraid of it, they don't want to go near it. They are worried of breaking something. They don't want to do something that's going to upset their clients or their organization. So they just don't want to touch it until they've been given some guidance and some training on how to use it effectively. And all three of those people will greatly benefit from capability and training and support because, of course, the overexcited ones will probably have the potential to go too far the other way. The skeptics really need to be brought along on the journey, and they need to be build trust and to show that actually, look at these great things that are happening in our organization. You want to be part of that. And then those who are fearful, you want to remove the fear by showing them that AI isn't anything to be afraid of, that there are the guardrails in place, that there is the policy, and that we can teach them how to use it in a safe, accessible way. So,
Mm.
mm.
And out of those three, which reaction kind of worries you the most?
I actually think it's probably the more excited ones because they can be the hardest to control. You know, if we're talking about, say, doing some initial AI capability sessions and then rolling out a small pilot in an organization, which is often the journey that I'll take clients on, the excited ones will probably go too big too quickly. And they'll think of a really, multifaceted project that involves huge amounts of automation and data. And it's about sort of taking them back to the foundational level and saying, look, we're not quite ready to start there yet. And then you don't want to kind of dampen that excitement. So you need to sort of channel that energy in the right way. So actually, they can be one of the most challenging groups to work with. The skeptics and those that are fearful, I'm fairly confident that once I can get in front of them or a decent AI trainer can get in front of them, you can quickly show people the potential of it. And the most important thing is to show them examples that are rooted in their day to day. So they need to see organizational examples that they relate to. And that's what a lot of my training is based on, is making sure that I bring in as much relevancy as possible to the training, because that's what will change the minds of those that are skeptic and that are fearful. And the fearful ones are great to work with because you just need to hold their hand. You need to be supportive and take them step by step on a journey. And if you do that, then they tend to end up being your biggest champion. So, yeah.
Do you find it's a bit like the hare and the tortoise? You know, the enthusiasts to run off, and then maybe the skepticals or the fearful might actually end up not winning the race, but actually getting to an end result that's probably more solid.
Definitely. But you need your champions, and you need people that are excited about this tech. And they're the ones that aren't afraid to put their head above the parapet and say, look, we'll be the test dummies, and we'll give it a go. And you need people that are okay with failing and learning from that, because that's what I think AI capability is all about. You've got to be confident enough to have a good dabble, really good play, use it as much as possible, break it, learn what goes wrong, and then sort of go again. So you want all of them basically on the journey with you. Yeah.
Mm. And how do you kind of, or what do you think the best approach is in terms of getting people on board? And I'll give you like a couple of stories from my experience.
Mm.
I've seen it done two ways. I've been in a big workshop once about AI where you get the whole team in, and I found that didn't land very well, and it's hard to kind of cross that barrier and get people that are fearful across with you. And then at the other end of the scale, I've seen it where you work with a small group, a sort of a trial group first, and get, as you say, show that relevance in their day-to-day work, show how it can work, and they then become advocates, that help you sell it into other people within the business. So what's the kind of best approach there?
For me, I would prefer to work in more of a small group setting if possible. So starting at leadership level, really getting the leadership team to understand what AI is about and how it can help their organization. If we can start there, then we can build a program that works for the rest of their workforce. I'm a big fan of face-to-face training, which might sound counterintuitive given that we're talking about AI technology. But as a trainer and a facilitator, I know that I can engage someone far better when I've got them sat in a room with me than I have them behind a screen. So my preference is to try and get in front of people as much as possible, or at least bookend the training journey with an in-person session up front and then an in-person session at the end with some virtual training in between. That can work quite well. But yeah, I think in an ideal world, you would start at leadership level. You would then build a program that ran through the rest of your workforce. You would want to deliver some pilots with maybe specific business functions initially so that they could work together as a team and learn about how it would be to integrate AI into their day-to-day. So a couple of really safe adoption pilots, and then some ongoing learning and development for the workforce to make sure that they're all, they've got that support and they're building that capability gradually over time. That in an ideal world, that's what it looks like. But of course, many organizations are at different points in their journey. So I'm getting approached, for example, with an organization that are quite far ahead in the sense that they've got their policy, they've got their steering group, and now they're just looking for some foundational training for the team. That's great. I'll slot in there. Others are coming to me when they haven't even got an AI policy. The leadership team are all at sea. So then you're starting a bit further down the track.
So you're adapting to whatever they
Absolutely.
need.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
one thing that you said earlier that I really identify with, and I think you make an amazing point there, is that this whole thing of face to face. We went through a stage obviously because of world events where everything moved
Mhm.
online, and we did everything via Zoom or Teams and you're right that this feels like something that would be well suited to that because it is so tech. It's the end result is us working with a screen, working with a computer to get stuff done. But that human element, I was talking in the last episode to Russ Hennebury about community and how
Mhm.
community and those sort of things are so important. And I think that's really interesting that although it's something so techy, that face to face element is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And I'll give you an example as to why. So you can do a lot of online AI training. Government have just launched a new skills hub. You can go and do training with Microsoft, Google, IBM, whoever you want to. So you can build some of that foundational AI stuff yourself, and anyone can do that now, which is fantastic. But what you're then missing is the interaction with the other human next to you, where you can learn from each other. And so in the training that I deliver, people are doing things together in pairs. They're learning, they're doing some hands-on prompting exercises. They may be learning about, how to build their first AI assistant, whatever it might be. And it's that interaction between them and their peers where the sort of magic happens, because they start to see that, everybody's at a certain level. There was a training that I did recently with a bunch of businesses up here through the local chambers of commerce, and they started trading tips about how to build an AI assistant to write tenders and proposals, because they had common ground there. So that's what you can do. And also, if you've got your fearful people and your skeptical people in a room, as a trainer, you can spot them and you can go and give them some attention. You can speak to them directly. You can try and bring them back into the group. It's very difficult to do that online. It's just much harder anyway. So I
Mm.
think there's a place for both, because we can't all be available to do in person all of the time. So we need to sort of pick our moments wisely. If you've got a staff away day, think about bringing in an AI trainer or consultant to come and talk to your team and create that space where people can have the no stupid question scenario. And then if you've got a whole literacy program that you want to roll out where you just need subject matter experts and you know exactly what you want them to train you on, well, then bring them in and tell them what you want, and then they'll devise a course for you to do virtually. So you need both. But my preference, particularly if you're talking about that first step on the journey, building those foundational AI skills, getting people to understand what it can do and how it can relate to their day to day and how it relates to them as a leader in their organization. You really need to be doing that face to face.
I wanted to come back to something you said earlier about, the enthusiastic people, they might run off and they might go too fast. What sort of things are you seeing there when people are taking it too quickly and going too far, too fast?
Yeah, well, one of the biggest challenges for businesses at the moment is this rise of the shadow AI use. And under that definition comes a number of things. So you've got people that are using AI tools and platforms that haven't been approved by the company. They might not even have any approved tools or platforms at this stage. The second one is that they are putting information into those tools or platforms that shouldn't be going in. So data breaches are happening most through shadow AI use. And it's very problematic, both of those elements, because you might have somebody who isn't trained how to use a tool properly and is churning out not particularly good work. So you've got a kind of quality control issue there. You've then also got the potential of not understanding the guardrails. And so you might have somebody sharing some data that they shouldn't have done. And more organizations are now putting in place things like, we're going to track, if you've submitted something to me, I'm going to track to see if it's been written by an AI. And so it's a big headache for businesses right now is, how do we keep control? How do we keep the lid on without stifling the enthusiasm and the appetite and the fact that we can see this could be transformational for our business, but how do we wrest back control? Because as we know, nearly everyone has got at least one AI tool on their desktop. ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever it might be, Copilot. It's a bit of a dangerous tool if you're not taught how to use it properly, in my view.
Yeah. And just while you mention all the different models, what's your current favorite?
I'm fairly agnostic. I need to know a lot about all of them because my clients work with them all. But I'll give you a couple of use cases to how I'm using the tools in my day to day. So ChatGPT is my go-to for business development strategy and for helping me to organize client work. And I use projects a lot in ChatGPT. So that I find it really helpful for the strategy side of things. And Claude, I use as my marketing assistant. So I find Claude particularly strong in terms of copywriting. So that writes my blogs, it helps me write my newsletter, my LinkedIn content, and all of that sort of thing. So, and if I have any client work that is involving marketing, then I would be steering clients toward Claude. Copilot, I find, is a fantastic all-round workspace. It's designed to be a kind of workplace tool because it's integrated within your Microsoft environment. So Copilot is great if you've got SharePoint and you've got loads of documents. You can create notebooks. You can do lots of visuals with Copilot. There's lots more to Copilot, I think, than people realize. And I've been going on a long training journey with that recently. And then I think one of my other key tools for me as a consultant is Firefly's AI, which is a meeting note taker. But I take it with me everywhere. So I went to a conference the other day and I recorded all the sessions in the conference. And then I was able to create a really useful thought piece from that. But it's really important for me, particularly if I'm having, a pre-training meeting with a client, I need to know exactly what they want. And I will use my note taker to help me, because it's impossible, isn't it? You can't hear everything that people tell you. So I find that's a very essential tool. So I use them all in different ways, and I've got loads of others that I play about with. And I think that's part of the beauty and the challenge of it, isn't it? Is that there's so much available now. Is sort of, where do you start? And I get asked that question a lot, like, well, what's your favorite tool? What should we use? But really it should be about, what does your organization need and what are you using now? Because actually, if you're a Microsoft house, then it probably does make sense to make some use of Copilot. But if you're a Google house, then probably doesn't, to be honest.
I think one of the things you said there which is really interesting. The beauty and the challenge of it. Yeah, there is so much tools. There's so many new things coming out all the time, and that's amazing. But it's also really difficult, isn't it, to stay on top and to work out what's generally new. What's like the new shiny thing that's actually no better.
Yeah, it's extremely difficult. And that's why I decided to launch a newsletter. So I've got a bi-weekly AI that works for new newsletter, and I try and put some relevant news in there that I think, SMEs and social impact organizations need to know about, not all the shiny stuff. But one of the most difficult things of keeping on top of is just the development of the tools. So even with an established provider like Anthropic, they've just launched 2 new elements to Claude, which you now need to get to know. Copilot's gone through an enormous facelift in the last 6 months. So if you used Copilot 6 months ago, it looks completely unrecognizable now. And I think that's why I would always recommend, if you are going to implement AI in your organization, get a trainer in who's, I spend probably at least a day a week just on learning and finding out about what's new and testing it so that my clients don't have to do it. So you need to get someone in who's a subject matter expert who can really help you with what's happening in the here and now, because it changes, on a daily, weekly basis. I'm kind of hoping that we're reaching a plateau at the moment. I'm hoping that the tools have got so good now. I hope that we might reach a bit of I keep saying this, but every couple of months, it's another upgrade. So yeah.
Hmm. You just mentioned 2 new things from Claude. I'm conscious of not making this too time
Mm.
specific, but so what's caught your eye lately with Claude?
Yeah, so Claude's released a new function in Excel, which means that you can open multiple data sets at once and interrogate them. And then it's also released something called Claude Co-work, which is off the back of Claude Code. And it's quite agentic, so it will help you like do things like reorganize your filing space and things like that. So it's got the sort of coding intelligence, but Co-work, you could use it if you weren't a coder, which I think a lot of people are very interested in. So yeah, Claude Co-work is something that I'm looking forward to having a play about with, but they literally just released it sort of 2 weeks ago. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, funny enough, I've been playing with it today on one of the topics we've just been talking about, which is, I see so many things on LinkedIn. Or this is, this
Yeah.
is my new prompt for doing this. This is my system for doing that, and it's hard to work out if it's actually genuinely new or not. So I've been putting together a co-work project that builds a knowledge base for me, and when I get a new one of these guides or whatever, I can pop it in, and then it comes back and it tells me whether this is something genuinely new or if it's something that's just an enhancement of something we already know, or it's something that
Sure.
is actually just not new at all. So it is really interesting, actually. Co-work. I'm only starting to dabble now, but this stuff, as you say, is moving so fast and moving on from just a box that we type something into and get an answer to something much broader.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is that because that's what everybody was sold into 2 or 3 years ago, the box that you chat into and you get an answer back, which in itself is mind-blowing. But many people or organizations haven't moved on just from using it as a chat function. And unfortunately, if you're stuck in that mode of just question and answer and occasionally getting, a reasonable output, then you're losing 99% of its power, which is all to do with having it getting rooted in what it is that you're delivering, your own organization, what your challenges are, and how it can help you, how it can help you work through those. But as with any new technology, you have to get to know how to use it properly. So if you're only using it on a surface level, then just like your CRM, if you only use a CRM on a surface level, you're not going to get what you need. And I think that's where I'm seeing now. So I'm seeing this shift from curiosity, which was very much last year and maybe the year before. Oh, we're dabbling, we're curious, we're going to try a few things, to capability this year, which is, okay, this AI thing isn't going anywhere. People are using it anyway. We now need to get them to be capable of using it in a way that benefits us in our organization. And that's the shift that we're now going through, that I suspect will stay in for the next 2, 3, 5 years, until we probably reach another enormous change where the AI becomes even more powerful and starts to create systemic change probably. Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Might need to get you on again in a year's time and see
Yeah.
see see if we had a quiet year and it's all calmed down, or if it
Ugh.
keeps on changing.
Mm.
So I wanted to go back to something that we talked about earlier a little bit as well. So we talked about the excited people and sort of how that manifests when they go too fast. How about the some of the other groups, the skeptical or the fearful? What does it take to help them feel confident using AI?
I think it's rooted in hands-on practice and that show and tell idea. So when I became an AI trainer, I deliberately found a learning provider that could help me to make sense of it to a non-technical audience. And so the way that we teach AI is a sort of three-stage process. So we explain what it actually is. We do a lot of demonstrations. This is what this tool can do. Look at this amazing piece of technology. So we kind of show, and then we encourage hands-on practice. So prompting practice is a really good one to start with, getting people to understand what a good prompt looks like and then helping them to see what the different outputs look like. If you've got a slightly more advanced group, it might be helping them to set up their first AI assistant with a repeatable task that they struggle with on a day-to-day, and so forth. So, and then coming back together and learning about, okay, what happened there? What did you learn? What was the challenges? Do a bit of Q&A so that you're creating that real learning environment. And I think that's what you definitely need to do for those who are fearful and skeptical, is you need to break it right down for them and really show them in a hands-on way what it can do for them and their roles. And then you start to find that they'll say things like, oh, hang on a minute, so does that mean that in that next board meeting, I don't have to sit and make notes. I can actually listen, and then I can have a note taker. Oh, and then with those notes, I can actually write the report. And then it's like, you can see like the light bulb going off in their brain of, oh, right. Okay. So all that admin stuff that I hated doing. Or the other day I was training, a member of a national charity business development manager, and he openly said to me, "I hate writing proposals, Corinne." He said, "They take me hours because I hate them." And I said, "I absolutely hear you, because I'm exactly the same. A lot of business development people, we love the meetings, we love the chat, but we don't want to write the proposal at the end of it." So we built an AI assistant so that he's got a proposal template. He can just put the meeting notes in. It does a really good first draft. He can edit it, tweak it. But once you can train, your AI assistant, technically they can do that all the way through, without very much human intervention, as long as you've given it the structure to start with. So I think it's showing them that powerful journey they can go on. Yeah.
Hmm. And have you ever been surprised? So you're in these sessions with the skeptical people, and they're kind of brainstorming with each other. How many times or how often have you kind of had they've come up with an idea and you've gone, oh, that's a new idea for me as well?
Oh, all the time. Yeah, it happens pretty much every time I train, because you only know what you know, right? I know my business and people's organizations on a surface level, but yeah, the stuff that they come up with in terms of the solutions to the problem is amazing. And that's really the nub of it for me, is we need to come up with the problems to solve in the first place. If we're not rooting it in that, there's no point saying, "Oh, I want to learn how to use Google AI Studio and create brilliant videos." Well, why? So let's take it a step back. What is it that requires video creation in your organization? Have you got a problem with your video creation processes? And then that's when the AI comes in. But I mean, for everybody now, there isn't really much that it can't solve. That's one of the challenges, really, is that it can solve nearly everything now that you throw at it. It just might require different levels of technological know-how, to realize it. Yeah.
That's really interesting. That what is the problem that we're trying to
Yeah.
solve? Yeah,
Yeah.
rather than what can we do with this thing? Yeah, what
Yeah.
actually is? Yeah, what
And
is
and
it
of
that?
course, I spoke to an FD of a large family-owned business up here, and he said, "Look, it's all very well you saying that we can help our people to be more productive in their day-to-day. It might be nice for them; they can go and have more of a tea break. But how is that actually helping our organisation? Where's the ROI?" So, they're looking at things like, how can it help us with growth? How can it help us with innovation? How can it help, increase our profit margins? That's what the leaders are focused on. And so you've got this kind of almost two-tier of like, okay, we want to build the capability of the team, but also it needs to work for the company.
So once AI settles down and you've kind of had your groups in and they've come up with ideas and you get past that kind of first stage of everybody getting used to using it, what's the kind of main things that people are using it for in your organizations?
Oh, there's a whole range of things. I think it depends on the type of business it is. So, if you're a manufacturing company, then a lot of the focus tends to be on how can it increase our efficiency in our operations, in our day-to-day. And for a lot of factories now, they've already got enormous amounts of automation anyway. And then thinking about, well, also how can it support us in the back office? And one of the biggest challenges, particularly with SMEs, as we know, and charities and social enterprises, is that they're incredibly time poor. So really for them, a win is in terms of freeing up their time and efficiency. So I worked recently with a charity pro bono, and I just helped them build a project in ChatGPT to help them with funding applications. And it sped up their time to submitted application by sort of 10 times. So they're able to send out, double, triple the amount of applications that they were, and now they're getting more funding in. So for them, it's sort of directly impacting on the money that they can raise, and it means that the people that are working in the service delivery are focusing more on that and less on the admin side. So I think there's a big driver for companies, whether you're a charity, a social enterprise, a manufacturing business, to sort of help with that administrative layer. Particularly, and it is one of the quickest wins because you can do that relatively easily. The automation side of things, and in the manufacturing facility, that's going to require specialist knowledge and AI implementation engineers. So that's more of a sort of long-term project, but certainly removing that admin layer. And then I think also on the sales and marketing side, I think it's very much speeding up and helping companies to create better, more content. I mean, I'm very much on the side of better content, not more. But actually, it's like having a expert marketing consultant by your side. So I'm currently working with an organization up here in Murray that just gone through a rebrand. And so what they want to do is create a whole range of AI assistants to support them as they launch their new brand. So we're going to be creating, social media assistant, a blog writer, a content creation calendar. We're going to be doing all of those things using AI. So I think that most marketing departments now will be sort of rooted in it. And then on the sales side, the most time-consuming things with sales, as I said, are proposal writing and understanding, what went on in a meeting. But actually, I think from a capability point of view, from the sales side, it is probably more powerful in terms of you understanding your buyer better and being able to have a better relationship with them. So I recently just wrote a guide about how to use AI as your sales coach, because actually it will help you to move that deal forward. It will help you to, skip a few steps in terms of where you might want to get to, because human beings, we're very emotional, and I think sales is a very emotional thing. So if you remove the emotion out of it, it's really good at guiding you and showing you where you might not have done your qualification process quite well enough, or your discovery. And then it will advise you on what to do next. So when I work with sales teams, I'm sort of helping them on all of those aspects, not just the sort of admin side. So yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit, really. It's you've got operations and HR that that want to use, for example, what you can do in something like HeyGen, which is create an avatar, a company avatar. And so they've got somebody who's training people on or doing onboarding, but it's not a person, it's an AI generated trainer. It's just incredible what you can do.
Have you had much luck with Hayden? I tried to create a Haygen of me last week, and then I used 11 Labs to try and create my voice, and it's not quite there. I don't know if it's because I've not given it enough source material, or if the text's not there. But how have you found that?
Yeah, I found it pretty good when I used it a few months ago. But I think it's with all this tech, sometimes it's just having the time and patience to sort of sit down and use it properly. And the other thing we've got to bear in mind as well with all these tools is that the free version tends to be the not so good version. And in the free version, you are the product, not the other way around. So my advice always to businesses and organizations that are looking to adopt AI is be really careful with any free tools that you use, because you don't know what they're doing with your data. You don't know what they're doing with your face. But as soon as you start paying something, then there's a contract there, and you can interrogate their security and all the rest of it to make sure that it's meeting with your criteria and GDPR and everything like that. So I think sometimes, these guys want to make money, don't they? These AI tool providers. And so they're going to give us a kind of MVP version of the product maybe, but it's only when you invest in it that you actually get the proper one.
Yeah, that's I like that. Yeah, be careful with the free version because you're the product. That's
Yeah.
interesting take.
Yeah.
I like that.
Mm.
What do you think are the kind of like the most boring uses of AI that are making the biggest differences?
Oh, I mean, for me, it would be things like writing contracts and service agreements. I find that, I've got a template. There's no reason why it should take me an hour. For some reason, it does, because I'm not an admin heavy kind of person. So all that mundane stuff, and anything that can be templated, basically. One of the things that I've noticed that AI, it helps you level up in, and I think this is where a lot of organizations are struggling right now. I really think this is that as humans, we've created easy shortcuts to things, or we've done something in a certain way for so long we can't imagine doing it another way. When you start bringing AI into the mix, you actually need to do it in a structured, processed way. You need to map your process and you need to work out what needs to happen when. And I think that's where a lot of organizations are struggling, because they think, well, I thought AI was magic and it can do this. And then you realize that you need to maybe have built some templates, have workflows, and you mapped out your processes. And then when you've done those things and you've invested some time up front, then that process that did take you 2 or 3 hours is now taking you 5 minutes. But you do have to invest the time up front to do it properly. So I've spent a lot of time in the last 6 months to a year actually process mapping the things that I do on a regular basis. So I've got templates for all the client work and all the regular stuff that I have to do, that did once take me hours, but because I just didn't think of it in that way. And I think that's requiring a different sort of mindset shift in people as they learn how to use AI properly.
So we're saying there really that there's actually quite a lot of work to be done because we do things and we just know how they work and we don't follow through necessarily on a formal process. But actually, to make it work in AI, we've got to formalize those processes and understand them.
We do, because we have to give it the context. We have to give it as much information as possible to get a good output. Otherwise, you're not going to get anything that's rooted in who you are and what you do. And the more structured and processed you can be with the AI tool that you're using, the better output you will get. So Cess, initially, I was thinking, well, what's the point in training my AI assistant to write me a newsletter? Because it's going to take me loads of time to do it up front. But actually, if you flip it on its head and you go, for this task, I have now got an assistant. So where do we need to start? So that's exactly how I started. I said, I want to create a newsletter. I want it to be templated. Where do we start? And together we built the template, and then together we create the content. And it brings me back, if I try and go off piste, it'll say, well, that's not in the template. So are you sure you want that to go in the newsletter? So actually using it as your assistant going through. So don't think you have to go off and do it all on your own, because you don't. If you need a template created, get it to help you create one.
Yes, that's very true. And I've just asked you about the boring things that that made the biggest difference. What about the other end of the scale? What about the things that people think are going to be transformative and huge that don't really kind of turn out that way?
Yeah, so I think things like sales is a good point, really, because there's been a lot of hype around, we can get AI to send out automated emails and look at buying signals and all of those things. It can use all the data, but I've watched the sort of evolution of that go on in the last 5 or 6 years, and it started with sort of email automation, which is obviously still AI. It's just algorithmic, and I've sort of seen it come full circle. So a lot of those tools and platforms have sort of died a death, really, because people have realized that nobody wants to be spammed in their inbox, and Google have put up the shutters anyway, so you can't get to people. And it's sort of come back around the other way, which is, okay, we need to be a bit more human-centered and strategic and targeted about the way that we do sales. So I think that that's a good example of how it's come back full circle. And I suspect we will see other examples of that happening in the next few years, where we thought it might be the answer to, I don't know, the legal profession, and then we'll come back and go, oh, actually, we really did need lawyers because they had the critical thinking that the AI doesn't have. And I think one of the things that most concerns me is that we are outsourcing our thinking. And I know that I fall into that trap, definitely. I think when you get so overexcited with using these tools and you think it can do it for you, but it can't. It cannot replace your critical thinking. It cannot replace the alchemy that is you and your knowledge and your understanding of the world and how you want to serve, basically. It cannot do that. And as soon as you start creeping into getting it to telling you what you should be doing, that's where you need to stop and really think, okay, I'm the human here. And actually, I might need it to enhance something. I might need it to give me another perspective. I might need it to help me to think about this in another way. But actually, the alchemy of what I just wrote there, that's the bit that's the good bit, and that's the human bit.
How do you coach people to do that, to kind of to know when they need to step in?
Yeah, so I think thinking with them about, what process it is, and then asking them, well, what part of that process do you think is your brain? Download your brain bit. Okay, so that download the brain bit, you might be able to, do some of that. We can write some guidelines. We can do all of those things. We can get some templates done, but let's have a look at the output together. And then we look at the output and we can see that it's not quite what you would have written or exactly how you might want to say it. And so then you need to tweak it and turn it into your voice. The more you go with it to do that, then the more accurate it will become. But I don't ever think, I think, the agentic AI is great, but we've got to think about, well, at what point do we actually review those emails going out? At what point do we check that contract is correct? Because it can still hallucinate and make mistakes all the time, as we know. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that for me, that is my biggest worry. One of my key things is human intent and human
Mhm.
judgment, and
Mm.
I'm all for the agentic stuff, but
Yeah.
I think we need to design it in a way where we still have those inflection points where we make sure that we're checking in. It's going to be really interesting to see how that whole thing sort of takes shape, and how we can
Mm.
get the benefits of agentic behavior, but keep our touch points
Mhm.
in the loop.
Yeah, definitely. Mm.
So how has AI changed you? I mean, you mentioned a few things about how you use it in your own work, but what's been like the biggest thing for you in terms of how it's changed your own process?
I think that, well, it's given me time back. So I would say that I've probably got at least an extra day a week now in my working life, thanks to the support of my AI assistants. I think that it's definitely helped me to become more structured and processed in the way that I work. And I want to teach that to my clients. So a client will often come to me and say, "Oh, I'm just using chat." And I'll say, "Okay, well, actually, can we maybe think about putting that to a project?" And that will then help you to organize a bit better. So I think I've definitely become more structured and processed as a result. And I also think thinking slightly differently. So I love the fact that it's a great leveler. So for SMEs, for small businesses, for charities, you've got the compute power of all the big tech companies at your fingertips. And so sometimes it's great just to think the sky's the limit here. What do I want it to do for me today? And with something like the deep research function, you can get it to do an enormous project that you would have maybe got a PhD student to come in and do for you about your, I don't know, the growth of your organization, or you can create an incredible knowledge bank with all your past board papers in it and all your HR operational policies, and then you can interrogate it and find out what you need to know. Or you can have an enormous contract from a new supplier, and then you can drill down and find out what the changes are from the last time they sent you the contract. It's those kind of detailed, nitty-gritty tasks that are really difficult for us human beings to do, because we can only keep so much in our brains at any one time, that an AI is super, super skilled at. So sometimes I'll just try and think, right, sky's the limit. What do I need to know today? And I'll get it to go and find out for me.
Superb. Absolutely superb. So, Corinne, one of the things we do is to take a question from a listener and chat it through. And the one we've got today, actually, you've touched on this a little bit already, so it's going to be really interesting to get into. So the question's from Ron, and Ron says, what's the right way to use AI to scan the web for high-quality B2B leads without ending up with broken links and poor data? I have issues when prospecting where it is good one day and then rubbish another, and the links it gives me don't work all of the time.
Yes, interesting one. So I think this is one of those ones where the perception of AI might kind of outweigh its abilities. So there's quite a lot of guardrails around data for a start. So quite a lot of data out there is gated. So LinkedIn, for example, you can't really scrape LinkedIn using an AI tool, and ideally, nor should you. So that's the reason why he's not getting the outputs that he wants, because he's almost asking it to do something that it can't really do. We've got GDPR, we've got data regulations in the EU and the UK. So ideally for his data, if he's talking about actual nitty-gritty customer data, whether that's phone numbers, email addresses, he needs to get that from a reputable data source. And there's lots of them online. You've got the likes of, Clay, that have got a lot of AI powered enhancements, Apollo, or you can go to someone like Market Location, who are kind of on a data provider that verify data through the phone. So that's kind of part of the question answered. You'd probably ask it to do something it can't do. But what it can do, which I think is probably arguably more powerful, is that your data is almost the last piece of the puzzle, isn't it? What you first need to know is, well, who are you selling to and why? And so what I find AI really powerful for, and you can use something like Perplexity for this because it's a really good web search engine tool, is that if you have an ideal customer in mind and you have some criteria, so let's say, I'm an AI trainer. I want to reach out to SMEs in Murray who've got a turnover between 5 to 10 million in the food and drink industry. I want them to have, a manufacturing base in the region. I want them to have office-based staff, et cetera, et cetera. And you give it criteria, and you might give it an example and you say, actually, I want it to be the same as, Pringles shortbread or whatever. Then an AI tool is fantastic at doing all of that research for you and coming up with a really good potential target list of maybe 15 to 20 organizations. And I think that's the bit that people forget that AI is really good at from a sales point of view. So you know who you're trying to sell to. You might even have a couple of ideal customers in mind, or customers that you worked with before. So give it that criteria and get it to give you some suggestions. It's only going to give you the top line information. It's going to give you the company name and maybe their address and, head office email. But then you can take that information and go, right, actually, out of those 15 it suggested, 10 are a really good fit. So now I'm going to go and get the data for those 10, rather than wasting your time and getting data for 500 where half of it's rubbish anyway. So I would kind of flip it on its head and use it as your customer research tool, your buyer research tool first, and then use a proper data provider to actually get to the data. Does that help? Do you think that will help?
Yeah, I think that's really good. So it's about this whole concept, isn't it, of working out what parts of the process AI can do and what it can't
Yes.
do. And I think you're saying there, look, actually use it for coming up with ideas of people that you could target and actually giving
Yes.
you a list. And then you go and do the human part of working out, well, do I want to target that person? And if
Yeah.
I do, get the contact details and so on.
Yeah.
And I think earlier you were talking about how, you know, you use it for proposals, you use it for sales coaching. So then dipping back into the AI to
Yes.
kind of do that stage and just really trying to work out. And I guess it comes back to as well what you talked about earlier about mapping out the process. So actually, this is a bit the AI is good at, this is a bit it can't do, and then this is a bit it can do. And really get that clear understanding of a map of the process and where it
Yes.
can help and where it can't.
Exactly. And if you're struggling at any point, then you can try it out. So if, for example, you struggle writing a decent sales email, AI is actually pretty good at that as a starter for 10. So if you had those 10 and you've got their email addresses, and you've given the AI a load of context, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is what we sell, write me a short introductory email, I would like to ask for a 10-minute conversation. It'll do a really decent first stab at that for you. Is there somebody that is a founder-led business owner? If you struggle with that sort of thing, then you can get it to do that. Or you can take it to its other degree and you can provide it with loads of your customer data and say, right, write me an ideal customer profile. Who do I sell to? Give me a profile, so that we've then got one that we can use when we write blog content or when we want to find our next 50 leads. So you can use it for all of those kind of supplementary bits. Yeah.
Okay. I really like that. It's working out the bits it can do rather than assuming
Mm.
it can do it all, giving it
Exactly.
the context.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm. Okay. So a couple of times you mentioned, things like the sales coach, and you have a guide on that. So,
Yes.
how would people get hold of that?
Yeah, so I send out a bi-weekly newsletter called AI That Works for You. It's on the top of my LinkedIn profile. It's also on the bottom of our website, which is ethical-sales.co.uk. So you can sign up anytime, and I write, free guides, literally probably twice a month. And I try and root it in practical day-to-day applications that an average SME or social enterprise or charity would come up against. So I try and make it as non-technical as possible, and as accessible as possible for everyone. So everyone is welcome to sign up.
Brilliant. I'll put a link to that in the show
Fantastic.
description.
Yeah.
Superb. So I guess one question to wrap up then. What is it? What's the one thing that you hope AI will never be able to do?
Yeah, so I think I probably mentioned it before, but I don't want it to think for us. I don't want it to make those big decisions in the world without human intervention. I think that would be very dangerous. So I'm very much on the side of trying to put those guardrails up and think about how we control it before some yeah, before some damage is done. And I think we're seeing that on a reasonably kind of micro level at the moment, but I suspect in the next year or so, there'll be a very high profile case which will involve, a rogue AI data breach or an agentic failure that will maybe, I'm hoping, won't do too much damage and will make us rethink how we can control it better in the future. That's my
Mm,
biggest concern, I think. Yeah.
yeah. No, I had said that was a question to wrap up on, but I don't think we can. I don't think we can end
Sorry.
on a note like that. So, what's the one thing then that you hope it will be able to do? If you had your kind of, oh, I wish it could do this one thing and it could do it really well. What would that be?
I've got quite a good one for you, and that is build decent presentations. So I've still yet to find an AI tool out there that can actually take your brand guidelines and turn it into something that looks good. They all say they can do it. You know, you've got Create and Copilot, you've got Google AI Studio, you've all of them, but I've not actually found one that doesn't require you to drag and drop and move and type and obviously as a curriculum creator, I'm doing quite a lot of that, or my team are doing a lot of that. So I'd really like it if that could up its game a little bit. It seems to me it should be possible. And if anybody knows a good tool that they've used, I'd be very welcome to have some recommendations, but I've not found it yet.
Brilliant. Yeah, that sounds a good one to me. Being able to do good presentations.
Yes.
Okay, well, hopefully there might be a tool out there that somebody knows about, and they can let you know. Well, that's been brilliant, Corey. I've really enjoyed chatting to you and learnt a lot there, and really enjoyed it. So thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me, John. It's been great.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.